What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. This is the channel where we sit down and cover different comic book stories from different comic book companies. Today, we're going to jump back over to Marvel Comics, and we are going to continue our coverage over the Ultimate Marvel Universe. Now, this is a book that we should have covered before Divided We Fall, United We Stand event we just wrapped up covering. So we are going to put this video ahead of those videos on the Ultimate Marvel playlist. Today, we're going to cover Spider-Man. This was the first time Peter Parker and Miles Morales met, the Peter Parker from the 616 universe, and was a huge thing when these two Spider-Men met for the first time back in 2010, I want to say. But if you do like today's comic book video, please hit that like button down below and also subscribe to the channel for more content to come in the near future. Also, any suggestions on books I should read? Well, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But I do hope you enjoy Spider-Man. So for the ones out there who don't know, this actually takes place before the Ultimate Divided We Fall, United We Stand event we covered. But we pick up with Peter Parker Spider-Man and we see him just swinging around his universe version of New York. Honestly, this is just a nice introduction for the story before we dive deep into the crazy adventure both of Spider-Man will go through. We see him just being a hero, stopping some random thugs from getting away. Of course, after he does that, you have the cops look at him as the criminal. So instead of getting praise for helping them do their job, he actually has to leave with the idea that they hate him. Except after leaving the scene of the crime, he sees some purple light in the sky, which of course makes him wonder what in the world is going on in the middle of the city. So he swings towards the light, finds some kind of abandoned warehouse of sorts, goes inside, and all he finds is some high technology. Some of that Tony Stark would use, or maybe even Reed Richards. The thing is, this leads into the big question. Who took all of this stuff and what is their game plan here? That is when he finds one of Mysterio's helmets, which tells him, of course, who is behind this. That is when his spider sense goes off, because behind him is Mysterio. So we get this classic battle between Mysterio and Spider-Man, where honestly, it is not even a fair fight since Mysterio is not using his usual trick to get over Spider-Man. Now we do get the moment where you have Spider-Man thinking that he won, so he goes to inspect the purple light in the middle of the room, only to discover that the purple light basically leads into another Earth. Of course, we know what Earth it will lead to, but for the sake of the story, we will act like we don't know. But either way, you have Spider-Man not paying attention to Mysterio, and so Mysterio was able to get a surprise attack in, which leads into Spider-Man falling into the portal, and of course we know what happens next. He is teleported to the Ultimate Marvel Universe, which of course Spider-Man quickly picks up that he is not in his New York anymore. First time that was given to him is that it is daytime, which is a huge switch up from earlier. So he then starts to go around the city. He remembers where the warehouse was located, so he goes there, only to find out that it is an apartment now. When he continues to swing around, he sees a lot of places are different. The biggest thing to be different for him is the Triskelion, of course the home base for the Ultimates and S.H.I.E.L.D. So after a few moments of him searching the city, trying to figure out where in the world he is at, he sees some innocent person being attacked and decides to help out. This is going to be the big shocking moment for Peter Parker, because after he does save this guy's life from the thugs, this guy talks about the Peter Parker in this universe, talking about how in this universe something happened to Peter Parker. With the main Marvel Universe Peter Parker walking around in the same exact Spider-Man outfit, it is kind of disrespectful. Now, Peter Parker leaves, and when he does leave, of course, he starts to think about where he is, what happened to Peter Parker, but before he is able to think more about that, that is when he starts to swing away to look for more clues, and that is the moment he meets Miles Morales for the first time. Before we can see more of the first meeting between Peter Parker and Miles Morales, we jump back to the main Marvel universe, where we see that Mysterio is waking up after his battle with Spider-Man. That is when he realized that Spider-Man was teleported into the Ultimate Marvel universe. This is where we learn that Mysterio from the main Marvel universe is the same man in the Ultimate Marvel universe. Remember that we never learned the actual origin of Ultimate Mysterio. Well, we find out that what he does is that he sends in a robot avatar that he controls into the Ultimate Marvel universe to make his bad guy empire there. This gives us the chance to bounce back and see the first meeting between Peter Parker from the main universe and Miles Morales, where Miles Morales quickly figures out that this is Peter Parker, which of course Miles Morales is happy about meeting Peter Parker, where Peter Parker is not happy about seeing someone else in a Spider-Man outfit. He thinks it is a clone thing, which of course it is not, which of course this does start a fight between the two of them because Peter Parker is not in the mood to deal with the idea of a new Spider-Man. Now, this was a problem for most Spider-Man fans because to most main Marvel Spider-Man fans, Peter Parker should have been able to beat Miles Morales easily, except in this book, it doesn't go that way. Where at first, it seems like Peter Parker may get the upper hand because he is more experienced than Miles Morales. You have Brian Michael Bendis, the writer, write the outcome of the story differently for the sake of the story, where it does end up being Miles Morales winning because he used his Venom Shock power, something Peter Parker has never seen or dealt with before until now. After Miles had knocked out Peter, the question is what to do next. You take him to Nick Fury, of course. We see that some time has passed by and Peter Parker wakes up in the Triskelion and is greeted by Nick Fury of this universe, the Samuel L. Jackson looking like Nick Fury. Peter Parker is locked up in a cell. You have Nick Fury ask him the two big questions, where are you from and who you are, and you have Peter Parker basically tell him everything that has happened so far. After he explains everything, Nick Fury is just like, yep, sounds about right. Nick Fury quickly believes everything this Peter Parker said and well, lets him go. So they go back outside to Miles Morales and tell him he is the real Peter Parker just from a different Earth. For the time being, Miles Morales is going to watch over Peter Parker and give him a tour of the city, while Nick Fury finds a way to send him back home. So they do get into a helicopter and fly off, which of course we get this moment to see Nick Fury cry, because remember, he feels responsible for the death of Peter Parker in this universe. He thinks it is a second chance to help Peter Parker out. But while Peter Parker and Miles Morales are bonding on the helicopter, that is when someone shoots a rocket and blows up the chopper. We see who it is. It is of course Mysterio's avatar. Of course, this does start a battle between the two sides. Miles Morales quickly thinks that he is able to take down Mysterio, so this is going to be a big lesson for Miles Morales when it comes to dealing with Mysterio. This won't be something easy for him to win. You have Mysterio just throw Miles away, and of course he throws him on top of Peter Parker. So Peter Parker tries to explain to Miles Morales how dangerous Mysterio is, how they need to hurry up and beat him up before he does his secret move, which of course cause illusions to appear, which he does. Usually Mysterio's illusions are based around technology to make people see things, and occasionally robots too, to make it seem like something is there when it is not. Except this time you have Peter Parker realize that Mysterio is using some kind of chemical that attacks the brain, makes you see something that is not there, and makes you feel like you are actually being hurt by whatever you see. It is something kind of new for Peter Parker to deal with when it comes to Mysterio. This leads to Miles Morales getting a jump on Mysterio, and Miles Morales starts pulling some cords, but Mysterio, back in the main Marvel universe, self-destructs his avatar robot and blows everything up. When Miles wakes up, he is greeted by the Ultimates. At this time, it was Iron Man, Thor, and Hawkeye. This was before the Ultimate Marvel Divided We Fall, United We Stand event we covered. So no Captain America, but they tell Miles that they came here to help, but see, everything is over now. Also the fact that now Peter Parker is now gone. So the question is, where is he? We see Peter Parker go to a store. The reason why he went to this store is because in his universe, it is his apartment building. Except in this universe, there is no apartment building here, just a regular convenience store. But he asked the lady about what happened to Peter Parker in this universe. Remember, no one has told him about the death of Peter Parker yet. So after some crook tries to rob the store, and of course Peter Parker stops him, he uses the worker's tablet or cell phone to look himself up to see that Peter Parker was killed, and the world knew he was Spider-Man. So Peter Parker does the one thing he thought would be a good idea, which is going to the home of the Parkers, where he does meet this universe Aunt May and Gwen Stacy, and this is a shocking thing for both sides here. Of course, to Aunt May and Gwen Stacy, this must be some kind of sick joke, because after Peter Parker died, the whole world found out that Peter Parker was Spider-Man. So to these ladies, it must be a sick joke, except you have Miles Morales step in and tell them that this is Peter Parker, just from another universe to be more exact, which makes Aunt May pass out. We then see Nick Fury and Iron Man trying to figure out how Mysterio is able to do all of this, how he was able to cross dimensions like that. But then Tony Stark is surprised by something, that Nick Fury let Peter Parker go and adventure the world, instead of keeping him locked up, where Nick Fury tells us he promised he would do right by the Parkers. This then proceeds into us seeing Mary Jane from the Ultimate Marvel Universe, since we have not seen her in a long time, where she gets a phone call from Gwen Stacy about what is going on. You can see on Mary Jane's face, she is surprised to hear what is happening. We then jump back to the home of the Parkers, where you have Aunt May waking up after passing out. She then hears Peter Parker, Gwen Stacy, and Miles Morales talking upstairs. We see Peter Parker talking about the different things that happen in his universe. He doesn't tell Gwen Stacy about her, well, being dead, but he talks about Mary Jane being a supermodel. Of course, this is a sweet moment, because then he talks to Aunt May, because she asks about her in his universe, where he explains the same thing happened in his universe happened here. Aunt May and Uncle Ben raised him after Peter Parker's parents died. Now the reason why the Parkers died had changed over the years, but still. Of course, he says the usual Uncle Ben line, with great power comes great responsibility. So Aunt May knows here that this is the real Peter Parker. They hug, but Miles sees S.H.I.E.L.D. pulling up, letting him know it is time to leave. Now, when Peter Parker, Nick Fury, and Miles Morales leave the home of the Parkers, that is when Peter Parker sees Mary Jane, hoping to have a conversation with her, because in the Peter Parker universe, at this point in Marvel Comics, Mary Jane and Peter Parker were no longer dating. Except this Mary Jane leaves in a hurry because she can't deal with seeing another Peter Parker. We then see everyone go back to the S.H.I.E.L.D. hideout, where you have everyone kind of thinking about how to get Peter Parker home. Where can they find Mysterio and stop all of this? When they begin to look through different images, that is when one of the buildings in a picture looks familiar to Miles Morales, makes him realize that he knows where to find Mysterio. So you have Peter Parker, Miles Morales, Nick Fury, and the Ultimates all gear up and begin to head that way. This is when we pick up with Mysterio again, but in the main Marvel universe, where we see him plotting what to do with Spider-Man, except that is when some web comes through the dimensional portal and pulls him through, where he is greeted by all of the heroes we have seen so far in this book. So we know he's about to get the biggest beatdown of his life. Where at first it seems like this is going to be an easy transition for the heroes. They are just going to take him away and that will be it. You have Mysterio actually run over to his computer and he starts to push a bunch of different buttons, which of course cause an explosion in the building, which of course leads into a big problem for our heroes. We see Mysterio release his gas once again, which of course makes the heroes see their worst fears. This leads into all of them freaking out and Mysterio trying to get away, except Miles Morales was the one to break free and able to catch up with Mysterio, and they both fall in the portal. This was more of Brian Michael Bendis trying to show off Miles Morales. The reason why I say that is because Brian Michael Bendis was trying to get the haters on board with his new character, so he had Miles be the one to fight Mysterio on his own and show off that he can be the one to defeat the main bad guy of the story. At the end of the fight, Peter Parker comes in and helps take down Mysterio for the final count. So honestly, it is a nice moment for the two of them. After the fight, you have Mysterio get arrested and taken away into the Ultimate Marvel Universe. Basically, he is going to stay there for a while, like forever to be more exact. So you have Peter Parker and Miles Morales have the big talk, where really it is just Peter Parker giving his blessing to Miles Morales to be Spider-Man. Also again, Brian Michael Bendis saying, hey, Miles Morales is not going anywhere. He is going to stick around from here on out. Get over it. Then you have Peter Parker go back through the portal to go back to his home world. The story closes on two things happening. Miles Morales being happy about getting Peter Parker's blessing. Nick Fury is happy about getting a second chance to help Peter Parker in his lifetime. Then on Peter Parker's side, with Peter Parker finally getting some time to relax, well, he wonders if there is a Miles Morales in his universe. So he goes onto his computer and sees that there is something shocking about Miles Morales in his universe, except it is a cliffhanger for Spider-Man 2. I don't know if we are going to cover that book or not, but this is the end of today's video. So please hit that like button down below and also subscribe to the channel for more content to come in the near future. Also, any suggestions on books I should read, well, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But I do hope you enjoy today's video.